Wait, before you think this is just another Bitcoin prediction, stop. Because what you're about to hear doesn't start with Samson Mow. It starts somewhere far more unexpected. While everyone was watching the market, Donald Trump just hinted this.
Many Americans are unaware that behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date, many, many years out of date. You know that. Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear. Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology. Who would have thought we would have been saying that 2 years after?
And if that sounds crazy, ask yourself this. Why are these conversations happening now, at the same time insiders are positioning? Because Mo isn't guessing. He's reacting to something already in motion. A shift that doesn't announce itself loudly, but moves underneath everything. And here's the part most people miss. By the time it makes sense, the price has already moved. Fast. So when he says, mark my words, it's not hype, it's timing. Timing that could leave most people watching from the sidelines. Listen carefully, because what he's about to reveal isn't just how high Bitcoin goes. It's why almost no one will be ready when it happens.
A lot of people misunderstand how money works. So Bitcoin is viewed as a risk asset or a tech stock. That's why we track. So when all the software companies were crashing because AI is going to replace every software company, Bitcoin came down with it. Very weird correlation. But people think Bitcoin is just a piece of software. But Bitcoin is actually a transformation of money. It's closer to gold, but it's better than gold because you can teleport it and memorize it. So it changes the entire paradigm. The way the world works right now is counterparty risk is everywhere. So for people that don't know, counterparty risk means you have to rely on another party to transfer something. In terms of gold, you can have gold as a bearer asset with no counterparty risk because you can have a physical gold coin. But that is not scalable. At a nation state level, you have, Taiwan has 424 tons of gold. You can't just take that with you easily. And a lot of countries store gold elsewhere, like Venezuela kept their gold with the Bank of England. And then famously, the Bank of England said you can't have it back when they said we want our gold back, right? And even I think many European countries, Germany included, store gold with the US. So there's counterparty risk with gold, which is, before Bitcoin, the hardest asset we had. And then you have the traditional financial system. And if you look at what happened to Russia, they were effectively debanked as a country and kicked off of SWIFT. And assets were frozen. And treasuries were frozen too. They owned a bunch of US treasuries. And now, as a country, you have to ask yourself, is that an acceptable risk? Taiwan also has treasuries too. And if you remember, I think it was last year, many countries suddenly were no longer friends with the US. Even Canada, where I'm from, we were suddenly, persona non grata. And, we're talking about annexing Canada as the 51st state. There was talk about grabbing Greenland and other things too. So I think people have grown up in a world that has been largely stable and largely very amicable and largely very friendly. Actually, I think Taiwan was on the receiving end of that too. I think Trump said, 要收保护费. You got to pay for the protection.
Yeah.
So things can change very quickly in the world. And we've seen that with Venezuela and now Iran. Things happen now. And in a world where things are changing, relationships are changing, the counterparty risk is changing, you need to have an asset without counterparty risk. And that is Bitcoin. And eventually people will come to that same conclusion, but it's difficult because Bitcoin is so revolutionary that people can't really wrap their heads around it. Because if they did, they would be buying Bitcoin and they'd be listening to podcasts and hanging on to Michael Saylor's every single word, but they're not. So this is the current state of the world we're in. People don't understand it yet, but they will because money is a necessity. My new prediction is 1.33 million by end of 2026.
Because?
It's overdue. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, people get angry when I make predictions. Like, how come you're wrong? Like, if I was right with every prediction, then I would be a trillionaire. I'd be richer than Elon Musk. But the thing is, it's a prediction, and it is for fun, and it is also to outline an interesting phenomenon, which is I'm going to be right eventually. If you look at every single price prediction model, stock to flow, power law, we have one at Jan 3, we call it Omega 60. Saylor has a model called Bitcoin 24. They all converge in the area of 2030, 2031, maybe 2032 of Bitcoin hitting $1 million. So every single model says that. And the world is largely asleep at the wheel still. They don't understand what's happening. They don't understand the scarcity of Bitcoin. They don't understand what Bitcoin is. But let's say they did, and let's say the models are right. Wouldn't you want to front run that? Like, rationally, do you want to buy Bitcoin in 2030 for $1 million? Or do you want to buy it in 2026 for 68,000?
It's easy to think Samson Mow is just making another bold call. But this feels different because what he's pointing to isn't just opinion. It's forming underneath the surface. Market trends are shifting. Policies are quietly turning. And for the first time, it feels coordinated. Then something else happens. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, Binance CZ steps forward. And what he says about crypto and AI doesn't sound speculative. It sounds inevitable. And that's when it hits. This might already be in motion. Watch this closely.
The native currency for AI agent is going to be crypto. They're not going to use bank cards. They're not going to swipe credit cards. They're going to crypto blockchain is the most native technology interface for AI agents. So when AI goes big, today AI they're not really agents. They don't buy tickets for you. They don't pay for restaurants for you. But when they actually do, those payments will be in crypto.
Crypto is going to be the native currency for AI. That line sounds bold, maybe even premature. But when you step back, it starts to feel less like hype and more like direction. Because if intelligence becomes digital, borderless, and autonomous, what kind of money actually fits that world? This is exactly where Samson Mow leans in. Not blindly bullish, but reading the shift. Years ago, Bitcoin was dismissed as internet money for outsiders, volatile, unregulated. Almost a joke in serious financial circles. Now it's being discussed at the World Economic Forum in Davos. So the real question isn't if things are changing, it's how far this goes. Let's hear more of what he sees.
Look at Saylor, right? He's hitting the ATM. He's monetizing STRC, their stretch product, and they're buying nonstop. This is an unprecedented time where you have a down market or bear market, and you have a massive accumulator that's going full speed ahead with buying Bitcoin. And he's not stopping, right? This has never happened in the past before. So if you go back to my 2024 prediction of why I thought Bitcoin was going to hit $1 million, it was because of the ETFs. Every other bull run in Bitcoin history has always been disrupted or muted because exchanges were overwhelmed. I used to run an exchange too. When the price goes parabolic and people are suddenly interested in Bitcoin, you cannot onboard and KYC people fast enough. But the ETFs removed that. And it also removed the barrier to institutional adoption. So that was why I thought we would hit 1 million very quickly. Now that didn't happen, but it is very, very positive, and it is playing out to hit 1 million. So if you look at the Blackrock ETF, IBIT, it is their most successful ETF product to date on a number of metrics: profitability, revenue generation, speed to grow to 50 some odd billion dollars, right? The rate and scale of institutional adoption piling in is just, it should have sent Bitcoin flying upwards, but it hasn't. And I think people are always wondering why it hasn't not gone parabolic. And I think it's a number of reasons. There's no one particular reason. One is people are short on cash. They're poorer now because of inflation and everything. You know, it's not widely accepted that inflation is double digits, but I think real inflation is somewhere in double digits, if not, 20%, if it depends on what you're looking at. But the other reason is also uncertainty, like all the conflict happening. And the last one is it's just people are investing in other things like AI and whatnot. So they're taking capital that would have gone into Bitcoin and investing in Nvidia or other things like that. So, oh, sorry, there's a fourth one, which is probably more on the Bitcoin/crypto side, which is the people that believe in the 4-year cycle. They think 2025 was the peak, and now it's just down. And of course, they're selling because that's what they anticipate. So there's like all these little factors that are playing into price suppression. But definitely, there's a lot of factors that are keeping Bitcoin down. But the thing you have to understand is there's not an unlimited supply of Bitcoin. If you look at stock to flow as a metric, Bitcoin is 5 times or 5.5 times more scarce than silver. And I think Bitcoin has the potential to at least do a 5x because it's more scarce. But 10x is not out of the question, and that would put us to 1 million.
Now connect the dots, not the headlines, the pattern. Donald Trump has made multiple statements around crypto, easy to dismiss in isolation. But layer that with quiet policy shifts leaning pro-crypto, and then zoom out to global conversations happening at the World Economic Forum. Suddenly, it doesn't feel random anymore. It feels coordinated, or at least converging. At the same time, something else is breaking. This idea that Bitcoin still moves in predictable 4-year cycles. The data isn't clean anymore. With large players steadily accumulating, the structure looks different. Heavier, more compressed. Not explosive yet, but building. And that's where the tension sits. Let's hear how Samson Mow reads what's coming next.
Yeah, like Bitcoin has taken a beating for the last 6-7 months, right? It's been 6-7 months of down. But I think it'll reverse. And usually when it reverses, it'll just reverse violently to the upside because of the supply shock. But we've never had a market like this. Like people, specifically crypto traders, like to say, well, it's really dumb, but they say it's going to repeat the past and we're going to have 80% drawdown. Not really. I think we've hit the bottom, and strategy buying, people like to say, oh, it doesn't do anything to the market. He's buying and it's not even moving it. But what it is setting a floor. Like he is buying aggressively at the bottoms. And you also have, basically it's packaging the strategy too now. So you can't really short strategy below 1 MNAV. It's kind of dangerous to do that. I think people realize it. So there's kind of like a double bottom. There's a Bitcoin bottom and then there's a strategy bottom, simply because of the size of strategy. So I think both things will factor into Bitcoin having a supply shock where there's just no more coins. And you have more big treasury companies that will be buying soon, like Adam Back, I think you had him on. BSTR is likely going to de-SPAC in the next 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. And they have $1.5 billion of capital to deploy into Bitcoin. And at 67,000, he's getting close to $10,000 below Saylor's average price, which is now 75,000 because he's been averaging down. So I think it's just too good to be true that Adam is going to de-SPAC and buy $1.5 billion of Bitcoin for 10K cheaper than Saylor. Because that has repercussions for the next 10 years, right? That means BSTR will be averaging, their average cost will stay lower and they'll be averaging up more gradually. Whereas if Bitcoin recovers to 80K, Saylor's averaging up again, not down.